You're writing your first novel, and as you progress, you realize you have no idea what comes after. Now it's eating at you, and you're wasting all this time on research, but no matter what you do, you can't find a satisfying answer. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know to take your rough draft all the way up to a finished product that's ready to be published. So after you finish your first draft, your novel's going to need a lot of work. And that's true no matter who you are. Even if it's your 10th novel, it's still not even close to a finished product. But that goes especially on a debut. No matter how many writing lessons you've taken, no matter how many courses you've been a part of, no matter how many videos you've watched, it's a theory versus practice thing. You, when you're plotting, set up all this stuff that's going to be great, and then when you actually write it, you execute perfectly on some of it, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes elsewhere, and you're definitely going to be able to tighten up the story and make it much better. After you finish your first draft, you're going to want to take some time away from the thing you just completed. You can outline or plot something else, or do whatever work you want to. Maybe even just step back for a little bit. The main goal at this period of time is a palate cleanser. Give yourself a couple days, even a week. You want to come back with fresh eyes. And then after you're sure that you're fresh, you want to start reading again. Think about things like plot holes, character inconsistencies, timing issues, and other places where you've set stuff up but not executed as well as you would have liked. There's going to be times where your action scenes are a little bit incoherent or not as intense as you want them to be. There's going to be spots where you reread and you realize you haven't even described what the room looks like or what a character looks like, and a reader isn't going to have an idea of anything in their head. So you just want to go over everything, see how you can execute better and how you can pay off better. A good piece of advice is to have a second file open when you're actively writing your first draft. Then you can just mark down chapters and whatnot, and you can make note of all the places where something is problematic or where you might want to return to a spot, give it a little bit more attention. These are the kind of things where you know you gotta fix it, but you can't lose momentum because momentum is the biggest thing in writing. So you gotta keep typing away, and you know that you can come back later and visit this again to fix it up real quick once you've actually got the bare bones down. That's what you do with your second file. You can have it be the title of like title '(s) notes, or if you don't have a title, you can have it be the protagonist's name '(s) story notes for draft 2. And that's just a way to make sure you can't forget any glaring issues. When you're writing, it's like you're spinning a bunch of plates and juggling on a unicycle. You're going to forget stuff. That's why I keep something open at all times. I write down notes of what I need to fix. And if it's very, very pressing, I will fix it in the moment. If it's not majorly pressing, I come back. I preserve the momentum, I keep working ahead, and I come back when it is time to fix those medium issues. When you do make a draft 2 of your story, you're going to want to save it as a separate file. Keep your first draft as it is, just so that you can compare what you've changed and keep track of that kind of stuff. If you change your mind on a revision, you can put it back to how it was in draft 1 if you decided you like that better. That's not quite possible if you're just changing your source material and not doing it as steps. So Your first draft is going to be called draft 1, and then you're going to put it in brackets, the date that you started. Draft 2 is going to be called the same thing, but draft 2, and you're also going to put in brackets the date that you started draft 2. Now you're going to try to want to cut out all the filler words that you don't need and check your tenses, make sure that they're consistent, and try to catch any spelling and grammar issues. A good example of a filler word would be that or had. There are scenarios where you can cut out the word that or had, and the sentence will make the exact same amount of sense. It'll be just as grammatically correct. It's just that you could have it in or could not have it in. Typically, if it's one of those scenarios where you could do either, cut it out and you will be flowing much better. Do at least one chapter a day when you're starting out. A seasoned author can do up to 6, depending on how long their chapters are, but you don't want to really rush this process, especially when you're new. You're trying to focus. You want to make sure you're catching as much as possible, because even after you're done this edit, there's going to be stuff that makes it through that gets caught in the next multiple edits. Now, you're going to want to edit until you know that you can't fix it or improve it without outside help or somebody else's advice. If you're planning on changing something, like if you know there's a problem, there's no point in putting it in front of some kind of beta reader or a friend or an actual editor, because you want them to look at the product as good as you can get it. And you want them to be looking at something that is not going to change from what they've seen, because if they give advice, but you're making other unrelated changes previously that you knew you were going to make, maybe their advice is no longer as relevant or as pertinent. That can be situational, of course. Sometimes you can catch small changes on your own and fix them up. But if you want to make a character into a different type of character entirely, don't send it to a person for outside help and then make that change after. Make that change before. Let them see the best work you can do and let them improve from a better base that you have provided them. I do want to be clear, it's possible to over-edit on your own. People get to a point, they doubt themselves a lot, so they keep changing things and going over and over and over again, trying to make it better, but they're just doing it slightly differently. A lot of the time, the execution is the exact same level of quality. Sometimes changing it too much makes it worse. So you only want to change something if you know for sure it's a problem. If you're like, I don't like this and I want it different, change that and then give yourself another cool down period. Look at it with fresh eyes. See about changing it again then. But do not sit there and redo the same chapter like day after day after day. You're going to want to go beginning to end all the way through, cleanser period, refresher, get fresh eyes, and then beginning to end all the way through with your edits. Don't get crazy. There are two main routes you can go when it comes to getting other people's input. You could send it to a beta reader, or you could send it to an actual developmental editor and save the beta reading for later. A developmental editor is the person that gives you advice on the story, the characters, and their arcs. They, in a lot of cases, tell you what to keep, what to cut, or what to consider changing, and potentially how to consider changing it. The problem is, it's also the most skippable of the actual edits. because a good beta reader can do all the same things and they tend to do it for free. The problem is a good beta reader is like 1 out of 10 beta readers, and they do tend to take several months to finish their beta read. So if time is of the essence and you're trying to get this done immediately, you might want to actually give some heavy consideration to a developmental editor. That said, paying doesn't guarantee quality. So what I would recommend is vetting your editor first. Make sure they're good. Make sure that they've worked on books that you're a fan of and they have been a part of stories that you find to be of sufficient quality that you would be happy with yours being at the same level. Now, you can make the changes or you cannot make the changes. Either way, give everything some serious, genuine consideration. And even if you send it to a developmental editor, you can still send it to a beta reader after. The important part, if you're going to send it to a friend or somebody to act as a beta reader, is you got to send it to a person that is comfortable telling you the honest truth, and somebody that's not just going to be telling you what you want to hear type of thing. In order to make the best art, you got to have open conversations about it and the quality level and how it can be made better. So make sure to tell them you don't have time for nice. You need absolute honesty. Like tell me exactly what you think is what you're going to want to tell them. I like to compare it to, if you've ever seen SpongeBob, that episode where SpongeBob goes to Squidward's art class and they're taking the marble, okay? Now, draft 1 of your book. You know how you got to look at the marble, you got to feel out the marble, you got to do all of this different stuff before you even start chiseling? If a finished sculpture is a finished book, your draft 1 is just you building the actual block of marble in the first place. It's not the end product. It's not the best work you can do. You know it. Any reader will know it. You still got to look at the marble. You still got to feel out the marble. You still got to lick, wash, and date the marble. So tell them exactly that. You know, this is not going to hurt me. Give me what you can. As long as they're approaching it in good faith and not actively insulting you, you know, don't take it to heart. They're in the right place and they are helping you. They're making you a better author. Now, just because somebody gives you a note doesn't mean that you need to implement it, and it doesn't mean that they are inherently correct. Doesn't mean they're wrong either, but no matter what, do not argue with it. If you're going to argue with it, you're going to make them feel less comfortable about giving you more honest truth. Genuinely consider all of their advice, even if you know in the heat of the moment that it's not quite right. Like if you know that it would be going in the wrong direction, still think about it, because maybe that right there will be what leads you to, oh, they thought the problem was this, but it was actually this. Therefore, I can fix it this way. It's perfectly valid critique for this person to say, I don't like this part, but I don't actually know why. There's a lot of scenarios where your reader won't know why they don't like it, but it just doesn't work out for them. And that is also helping. Now, the thing is, if multiple people say something is a problem, it's probably a problem. Ask them about their favorite characters and scenes and what they want more of. Also ask them why. That why is very important. After that, you're going to want to ask them about their least favorite characters and scenes and why. Another really good question to ask them is what else stood out as being either really good or being a problem. Now you can get answers that you didn't expect that stood out to them because they're not the author, they don't understand everything that's going on, but you didn't even think of it because it's all in your head and you understand every facet of everything. I like to have my beta readers take notes along the way so that their thoughts are fresh and instant, and it's not colored by stuff that might come later and provide more context. I want that thought process as they're going through. After they're done, just like with the developmental editor, you either choose to implement what they say or not to implement what they say, but again, heavy consideration. Next is the line edit. That's the person that is making sure you're using the strongest words and that your prose is as tight as it can be and that it's flowing well or well within the confines of whatever your story or whatever your style is. Some authors have a very blunt, direct style, very bare bones. They work with that too. It's a big part of their job to preserve your style and preserve your voice. If they're a good one, they're not going to make it sound or feel like they wrote it. They're going to make it sound or feel like you wrote it on a bit of a better day where you were choosing some slightly better words here and there. And they will also bring up some issues that they find with it and whatnot. It's all in all probably the most skippable of the edits because if you're a good enough self-editor and you are good enough at implementing beta reader notes, you'll most likely catch most of this stuff and you can definitely get a great 10 out of 10 novel without an actual line editor. But if you're a debut author, you might find a lot of value in having it done as just even a one-time thing. See the process, have them sort of open the door and show you what you don't even know, and maybe let that change your process or your mind a little bit. Maybe worth it for just a one-time thing because it'll pay dividends in the future and you'll be a better writer going forward without having to pay a line editor. But again, the most skippable, I would say. You should be able to, if you're experienced and you've done a couple books and you've done multiple drafts, you should have a reasonably mature product here, a reasonably mature book, development-wise, that is, not theme-wise or anything. And you should be able to function without that line editor. Traditionally published authors do get a line editor for every book, at least for the most part they do. But if you are the publisher yourself, there's a good chance that you might want to deploy capital more efficiently. So like I said, if you don't go with one, it's not the end of the world. Next comes the copy editor. This is the person that makes sure your syntax, grammar, and your capitalization is all correct, but they also make sure that you're consistent, that people have the same description the whole way through, same with places and everything else. If you wrote this, it probably took multiple months, or for some people a couple years to get through. That can lead to certain inconsistencies, even if you're doing multiple edits. This person is a highly trained professional. They have a very objective eye, and they're coming in completely fresh. So they are, at least ideally, catching every little mistake along the way, and they're making sure that your book is as professional and crisp as it could possibly be. Again, like with the other ones, just like developmental and line editors, you do have to vet them, make sure they're good, make sure they've been around the block a few times, and make sure that they've worked on stuff that you respect and find to be high quality. I would say that this one is the most important edit. The other ones you can very much skip if you have a beta reader, especially if they're a really good one. But the copy editor is the one that catches all of your mistakes. I've had a book beta read by like 5 or 6 people, and that was after I edited 2 times. And the 6th guy caught more than one spelling mistake. And these are like actual attentive people. There's just so many words and so much that can go wrong and be off that even if you do hire professionals, this copy editor will most likely be catching mistakes. Now that the copy edit is done, you're almost there, but it does still need to be formatted, most likely by a professional, but this one is also very doable on your own if you have software for it. It's the kind of thing where, you can get it done by a professional, you can do it yourself. The formatting isn't the hugest deal, and it's usually not the most expensive part either. And then after the formatter is done, that's when it goes to a proofreader. Do not send it to anybody. Do not send it to a proofreader, that is, until everybody else has looked at it. You've made every change you think you're going to make. It's been copy edited, and now you think it's a finished product. So you're going to read it yourself, make sure it's good. Then you send it to a proofreader. They give you their breakdown on what is still mistakes and what's not. Because you could introduce mistakes in your formatting. That's part of their job. You could have a chapter that is suddenly one page has words, and then you flip the page and it doesn't, and then the next one does. A lot of weird stuff can come up in those scenarios, but the proofreader will catch it unless you've absolutely hired the wrong one. No matter what, though, no matter how good they are, you want to read it again after that proofreader is done. You want to double check the work. It is your work, it's your responsibility, and you want to make sure you're putting out the best product possible. After that, you have a finished product. So you can have your cover made, and then you can just publish it like that. Now, the whole process, just to go over it one more quick time, is developmental edit, line edit, copy edit, format, then proofread. And you can sprinkle in beta readers along the way. I would probably do beta readers either after the developmental edit and line edit, or you could use it in place of them. The only thing I know is that I would for sure do my beta readers before the copy edit. The idea is you're sending something that you believe is already finished to that copy editor and making no more changes. So however you want to do it there, you could go multiple rounds of beta reading straight into a copy editor, or you could do multiple rounds of pro editors, the developmental and the line, into a copy editor, or you could go developmental, line, beta, copy editor. Really up to you how and when you want to use your beta readers, as long as you do them before the copy edit. And it's really up to you whether you want to do those first 2 professional edits. I find that if I find a good beta reader, I get enough value, I don't even got to worry about that. And that's all you need to know about how to turn your first draft into a finished product. So as always, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave any questions you got in the comment section down below.